Hello and welcome to the discussion of the August 2017 operational case study. My name is Hashan Madushanka and I'm the lead tutor for StudyCIMA. So I have been tutoring for the operational case study since the first case study came out in 2015, and I have covered all the operational and management case studies until this session. Okay, to get things started, so as you see, well, the industry seems very clear. It's on trains, and to be more specific, this is a company that is providing uh, train services from a particular point to another on two different routes. So the name of the company we are dealing with is called Premium Trains, and here we have the content of the pre-scene. So getting started with the first page, that's the name of the country we are dealing with, Thailand. It's an island nation in the northern hemisphere with a population of around 30 million. Now, from the population, it's not possible for us to exactly gauge the size of the country, because if you take two examples, if you take Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka has a population of around 22 million, and Australia would have the same population as well, but the size of Australia and Sri Lanka, it's immensely different. Australia is a huge country. It's among the top 10 countries in the world, so we cannot exactly measure the size of the country by looking at the population. But we know for a fact that it's an island nation, and that would mean that they would not have rail connections connecting Thailand and another country. So it's all inland transport rather. It has T dollar as its currency. Now the currency is very important for us, especially due to IAS 21. We know that we can be tested on how IAS 21 applies to our case, and that would be if this company Premium Trains has transactions with another country, possibly if they are getting something down, getting some machinery or getting components down from another country, how exactly it would be accounted for could be tested. Thailand has a developed railway system which supports extensive passenger and freight services. Now we are looking at two different segments in the market. Passenger services, we can expect it to be on a particular schedule that happens every day. Freight services, on the other hand, sometimes there might be special deliveries through the rail to deliver certain packages for business or maybe individuals. This system was wholly government run until 25 years ago, when the passenger services were privatized. Now, this is a particular scenario that we see in many countries. The government used to take care of the entire railway service, but possibly due to inefficiencies or possibly to increase competition to make things more efficient, the government would have privatized this. Moving on, the government retained ownership of the rail track and the stations, all of which are now managed by Thailand Rail, a government-run organization. Right, so seems like what they have given out to the private sector is the passenger service, right? Operations of the trains from one point to the other, but then again, the rail tracks and the stations are still under management of the government. At the time of privatization, the passenger services throughout the country were split into 8 mainline routes and 25 short routes. So, as we see, the difference between these two mainline routes are the longest routes in the country, and create a network that links all the major cities and some of the largest towns within central city. the capital of Thailand. Right, so this is very important since as an island, it's very important to have strong links, strong transport links between the capital of the country and of course the major cities. And if you take the short routes, we can expect these routes to have frequent services as opposed to the mainline routes because it will be more time consuming. Short routes connect cities and towns throughout the country. Many of these short routes are used by the commuters to travel to and from their place of work in these cities and towns. So we are targeting the working crowd where they travel every day, whereas mainline routes would be more time consuming. Maybe a short distance within the route might be occupied by commuters that travel to and from their place of work. Each route has a train passenger service franchise associated with it, and the 33 franchises, that's of course the 25 short routes and the 8 mainline routes, were issued to a total of 10 train operating companies. Right, so seems like the government is handling the franchise where they offer the chance of running the service for a particular period of time. And in this case, we see that the franchise was for an initial period of 15 years. And Premium Trains is one of these companies. At the end of the initial franchise period, all but one of the train operating companies were awarded the same for a further 15 years. These included Premium Trains. Alright, now to look at this in more detail, if you look at the industry, the rail industry has competition from the road and also air. Right, so in terms of the short routes, well, there would be an alternative of traveling by the road. Maybe bus services are available. But then again, using the rail would be much quicker generally, obviously due to the lack of traffic. And in terms of the mainline routes, depending on the size of the country, an alternative might be to use airline services. Right? We don't know exactly for sure. Maybe the remaining part of the pre-scene might give us some sort of an indication. Now, in order to get these franchises, it's very important to show or convince the particular authority that they have proper trains that are of safety and also good quality that would last for quite a good period of time and also display the efficiency, especially when you are renewing the contract after the 15 years. Then moving on, Premium Trains is a subsidiary of the Omni Travel Group. Right, so Omni Travel Group can be identified as the parent. Now, this reminds me of a particular aspect in F1, of course, consolidation. Now, it would generally be relevant if Premium Trains has a subsidiary where Premium Trains is the parent. However, you'll never know because your exam can be structured in such a manner you can even be tested on the consolidation adjustments of the Omni Travel Group, right? Because Premium Trains is a part of Omni Travel Group, and you as an employee, the highest reporting line would be Omni Travel Group. Okay, so we can't deny that fact where consolidation can be tested. And it has a number of other subsidiaries in the travel sector. So the amount of priority given to Premium Trains should also be looked at. And if it has links with the road and the air, that would also have some sort of an impact to Premium Trains. Premium Trains' sole activity is the operation of the 2 train passenger services franchises in Thailand. So seems like we are offered with 2 out of those franchises available. Each of these franchises is for one of the main line routes. Alright, so out of the 8 main line routes, it seems like we have 2 and no indication given about the short routes. You're one of a number of finance officers who work within the finance department. Alright, so there you go. That's your position. So most of the time in the previous case studies, it has been either finance officer, junior management accountant, or assistant management accountant. All these posts are pretty much relevant to the same scope of work. You're primarily connected with tasks relevant to P1 and F1, although as it mentions over here, your role is varied and you're often moved into different parts of the business to perform tasks. So we are looking at the application of uh, aspects such as marketing, HR, operations management, even IT, right? So although your job role goes as finance officer, please don't be under the impression that you are only connected to numbers, right? You'd also have to get your knowledge useful in terms of other functions, right? As you know, the E1 syllabus covers different departments of the business, and non-financial factors would also have to be looked at, although you're working closely with numbers. So that is something you need to keep in mind, because P1 could be identified as the main trigger, although the other subjects are also equally important. Moving on to the next page. We have information given on the train operating company performance statistics. So this is the performance for the last year 2016. So as we see here, we have 5 train operating companies for the mainline routes. So that's us, Premium Trains. We have 2 routes awarded to us, and that's our revenue. So from this, it looks like we are the second largest with regards to market share. That's around 25.7%. I repeat, 25.7% of the market share in the mainline routes. That is, of course, 234 divided by the total of these. So we are not exactly a small player, right? We are the second largest. Currently, only the 2 routes operated by the East trains are high-speed routes. Now, this is definitely important for the industry, because as we know, the technology is enhancing and the speed of movement of trains between one point to another is increasing. And of course, you have projects such as the Hyperloop coming up, very speed traveling. So in future, we might have to upgrade our trains into ones that are able to travel in the high speed routes, or we might have to do a totally new investment, which might be relevant pretty soon. In 2019, the route operated by Filton trains will be transferred to a new high speed line, which is currently under construction. Each of these high speed routes is electrified. Now, this is also important for competition, because once our franchise period is over, when we bid for the next 15 years, unless we upgrade our routes to possibly high speed routes, we might face a chance of not being able to renew the franchise. That is, of course, if the other providers are providing the high speed routes, then it would be a bit of an issue. So this is something that premium trains need to pay attention into. Then we are looking at some non-financial performance indicators. The punctuality, this is very important for a train service, for any transport service. Now we find a lot of complaints by passengers for all road, air and rail if there are delays from the schedule. So if you look at this, the indications are the blue shows the on time arrival, late, and of course very late, and below this it's clearly indicated on time means less than 10 minutes late, so that won't be a major issue. Late means between 11 and 30 minutes, at the final destination, and very late means more than 31 minutes or a cancelled service. So looking at the technical aspect, delays in the trains from the schedule, we could clearly link this into an external failure cost, where the delays are clearly indicating the quality of the service, and if delays occur, that compromises quality, and the customer has to face the burden of that. So we can clearly categorize this into external failure. Looking at our performance, well, we had some late services, but very late services, it's only a very small percentage. Although ideally we should try eliminating the green and the maroon and focus more on the blue, because as a customer, as a passenger, you always expect on time arrival, right? So customer satisfaction is extremely important, and this would also be a determining factor when renewing the franchise, right? So whoever authority that is looking at this, possibly the Toll and Rail Association, they would look at the performance, and if most of the services are late, then they would have second thoughts and they might offer it to a better company, right? So if we look at East trains, we see that there were no trains or no instances where the service was very late, and this is possibly due to the high speed routes that they are operating, right? So that is something we need to pay attention to, which would be very helpful for our future performance. Looking at the short routes, well, our name is not seen anywhere, clearly because we are offered with only two mainline routes and none of the short routes. Now their performance, their revenue for the last financial year is given. Now taking all of this into consideration, taking the revenue of the mainline routes and the short routes, adding it all together, this would give us a market share of 10.7%. I repeat, 10.7%. Right, now it's a little questionable as to why we were not offered any short routes. Possibly we didn't bid for it, or another possible reason might have been that these other train services were more convincing, and we see that East Trains operates 4 short routes as well. So possibly they are the largest. They can be identified as possibly the largest company. And as you see, they are the largest in terms of mainline routes. %30 of the short route network is currently electrified. Now, this is important since commuters need to travel to work much faster, and mainline routes might possibly be, since it's a long distance travel, they might not be highly bothered about the time during the route, but then again, for the rush hours, you really need as a passenger, you would be concerned with the time. So that is why in 2020 they are expecting the electrified routes to increase to 40%. So once again, emphasizing the importance. Looking at the performance, and I highlighted the fact that East Trains did not have any very late instances, and here also you see that East Trains have performed the best, although there is a very small percentage of very late deliveries. So in this case, on time means less than 5 minutes, late means between 6 to 30 minutes, and very late means more than 30 minutes. So that's a little different from what we saw in the previous page, because on time was referring to less than 10 minutes in the previous case. And an extra note is given here saying Toll government deems short routes to be late after more than 5 minutes and mainline routes to be late after more than 10 minutes. The differential recognizes the relative differences in the length of overall journey times. Now, with our current situation, this information is not very important for us since we are only operating the mainline routes. But in future, if we are bidding for the short routes as well, then we need to pay attention to these competitors. Moving on to the next section. So what we have here, it says Premium Trains Finance Department Staff Training Guide. So some sort of an internal document for us to understand the internal aspects of the company better. So it gives you an introduction. We are one of the 10 train operating companies and we provide service on 2 of the 8 routes. We have been in operation since 1991 when train passenger services were first privatized. Right, so that's 26 years ago. We were awarded our first 15-year franchise in 1991. So the routes are given west into Central City and south town to Central City. So both routes connect with the capital city, right? And from the name Western and South Town, we can understand that possibly these are 2 different directions. Now, these were renewed in 2006 for a further 15 years. And the next renewal would be, of course, in 2021. So that's just 4 years from now. So they need to be ready for this because whatever that happens there decides the company's future for the next 15 years. So they should try to get these 2 routes renewed, and apart from that, possibly look at other mainline and even short routes. That would definitely increase the company's revenue. Now they need to have a close look at what are the deciding factors by the toll and rail that would influence them to hand over the franchise to a particular company, and they really need to work on that. Of course, the critical success factors, the non-financial performance indicators, and so on. All the rail infrastructure is owned and operated by Toll and Rail, and we pay a franchise fee to Toll and Rail for the use of its assets. This is currently 51.5 million a year and is paid in monthly installments. So since it's paid in monthly installments, we can easily account for this as an expense, and possibly this is the fee that we are paying might depend on the route that is offered to us, right, and the amount of passengers that are generally using this route. So more the amount of passengers, more the fee. That's what we can expect, because if the company is able to make higher profits, it's more than fair enough for the Toll and Rail to charge a higher franchise fee from them. All of the services that we currently offer operate with the same type of train unit. So they have explained what a train unit means. It's a engine at both the front and the rear of the train, 7 passenger carriages and 1 cafe carriage. Now it's very important for a long distance train to have a cafe, because it can take around 6 to 10 hours of traveling and passengers would need some sort of a refreshment. We currently own 15 train units. These train units were all purchased new, and due to careful maintenance, these train units have the potential to be in service until 2030. Now this is simply an estimate, right? They need to keep checking this assumption periodically, since if the components of the train have worn out, well, then replacement is necessary, and overall if it's deemed as not very suitable in terms of quality, then it is high time that they need to replace it with a new train unit, of course, since the safety of the passenger is of paramount importance, right? The slightest shortcoming could cost even a customer, or maybe a couple of customers, even lives, and of course the business would face so many legal issues due to this. Now this careful maintenance of these trains, of course, falls into prevention costs, and they would have to do periodical testing, which of course would fall into appraisal cost. We lease under an operating lease a further 10 train units with the capacity to increase the number of units leased at short notice if the need arises because of the breakdown. Now, the different types of leases are not tested in this syllabus. You have finance and operating lease, but in very brief, an operating lease is where the ownership of the asset remains with the company that is providing us the lease, so we are not the owners of these 10 train units. The trains that we lease are all modern train units with state-of-the-art predictive maintenance system, which allows the leasing companies to keep a check on all aspects. Now, in future, if we manage to get more routes, then it would make better sense for us to purchase these train units since they are of high quality, state-of-the-art. They have predictive maintenance systems and so on. Premium Trains was incorporated in 91, and we have always been 100% subsidiary of the Omni Travel Group. So the influence of the Omni Travel Group would play a big role in the company operations since it's a 100% owned subsidiary. So they would have a very large say in most of the decisions that are made, and an advantage of this aspect would be that Omni Travel Group has other companies and it's a very stable, possibly a very large group. And in case of any financial instability, we always have someone to rely on in this case. Right, moving on to the next page. The two different routes that we are operating it. We hold the franchise to operate 2 of the 8 passenger routes in Thailand. Right, we have information about the routes. So route 1 is between Westin and Central City, 450 kilometers on one way, 20 stations on the route, and the journey time is of course 5 hours. Route 2, 350 kilometers, 16 stations, and journey time is 4 hours. Now the number of stations might be important because passengers might be able to use connecting services, and also we might be able to get new passengers on the way who would wish to travel between a station in the middle of the route to the end. So looking at the information on the towns, Westin is a major town in the west of Thailand. Westin train station is the most westerly station in the country, and the same thing goes for the south town. It's the most southerly in the country. So we are looking at two stations that are connecting with, of course, the capital, right? So these are two very important routes. And as I mentioned before, every station is stopped by all of our trains, and at 2 of these stations it is possible for passengers to connect with other mainline route services provided by other companies, and also passengers can connect with short route services at 5 stations. So that is for route 1, and for route 2 again it's 2 of the stations for mainline route services and 4 stations for short route services. Now the main marketing aspect would be to get more passengers for our routes and make sure that the seats are occupied. Moving on to the next page, regarding the timetable. On each route we run 8 services a day for at least 360 days of the year. So that is 32 services. So that would be 8 services up and down, making it 16, and for the 2 routes 32. Some services are run 365 days a year. Now we are given the departure time. Now having this schedule makes us easy to plan out. So our budgeting aspect will be made much easier due to the low volatility. So we know for sure that it's 8 services for a day and in total 32 services. So this makes it very easy for us to formulate our sales budget and cash budget and so on. Now, in accordance with the agreement, they have a commitment to run all the services on according to the timetable. If there are problems on the track, we are required to provide bus transfer between the stations. Arrangements are written into the franchise agreement, and it is extremely rare for a mainline service to be cancelled. It is also extremely rare for us to run additional services to those timetables. So the overall aspect from this explains us that it's very consistent, and the amount of extra services they have to offer is very rare and very low, right? So this again convincing my point that I made, it makes budgeting very simple. So as we see here, some passengers will use our routes as a means to arrive at a connecting station, right? So from that they can move on to another mainline route or another short route. Others will simply travel between stations on our routes, right? Then regarding the ticketing, passengers must have a valid ticket to travel before they board the train. All stations now have access barriers which will only allow passengers with a relevant ticket onto the platform to board the train. So we know that certain passengers, they would not purchase a valid ticket and just go for a free ride. So good that they have access barriers. Now that will reduce the difference between the amount of passengers in the train and of course the amount of revenue. We sell two types of tickets on each of our services, the standard class and the first class. So obviously the first class would be much expensive. Each train has 5 standard class carriages and 2 first class carriages. The next paragraph gives us information on the differences. The benefits of traveling first class are greater legroom, larger, adjustable and more comfortable seats, a table at every seat, complimentary drinks and snacks, and of course complimentary newspapers, magazines and Wi-Fi. So these are all the value additions that would be offered in the first class. Now the difference between the price should also be looked at. So if these are highly valued by the customers, then of course they could charge a certain premium price for this, subject to the price regulations of course. The complimentary drinks and snacks are served from a trolley which passes through each carriage at regular times, and they have a designated first class steward who is solely responsible for looking after the first class passengers. Now this would be very helpful for standard costing, since the cost of a first class passenger is obviously much higher, and a part of the package would include providing complimentary drinks and snacks, and of course the other value additions such as Wi-Fi, magazines and newspapers that would also add up to the total cost of a journey.